Imagine holding in your hand a coin that was born in the middle of the most devastating global conflict the world had ever seen. A coin struck not from the usual copper, but from steel coated with zinc. A coin that stands as both a necessity of war and a symbol of resilience. This is the story of the 1943 steel wheat penny, a coin so unique in American numismatic history that it continues to fascinate collectors, historians, and everyday people alike from the moment it left the presses of the United States Mint during World War II to the decades of discovery in pocket change. This coin has carried with it a tale of sacrifice, ingenuity, controversy, and survival. And today we will go deep into its history, its design, its circulation, its varieties, its errors, and its lasting impact on American coinage and culture. The wheat penny itself began in 1909 as part of President Theodore Roosevelt's campaign to beautify American coinage and honor Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of his birth. The new Lincoln cent featured the beloved wheat ears reverse, symbolizing prosperity and hard work. It became instantly popular and remained in production until 1958, when the memorial reverse replaced it. However, in 1943, the world and the mint faced an unprecedented challenge. Copper was needed for shell casings, for ammunition, for electrical wiring, for the vast machinery of war that kept Allied forces supplied on the battlefields of Europe, Africa, and the Pacific. The mint had no choice but to look for alternatives to continue cent production. Thus came the birth of the steel cent. In 1943, for the first and only time in American history, the 1-cent coin was made primarily of steel with a thin zinc coating to prevent rust. 3 main mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, struck these coins in the hundreds of millions, but despite their massive numbers, their appearance was so unlike the traditional penny that they immediately stood out in circulation. Bright silvery color often caused them to be mistaken for dimes, and their light weight made them feel unusual in the hand collectors. Today, see the 1943 steel wheat penny as one of the most iconic pieces of U.S. coinage, not just for its metallic composition, but also for the many varieties and errors that surround it. The most famous and valuable error is the 1943 copper penny, a mistake that occurred when leftover copper planchets from 1942 were fed into the presses. These rare survivors of a minting transition have fetched prices in the hundreds of thousands, even millions at auction, and continue to spark dreams among coin roll hunters and collectors around the world. But even the steel cents themselves have their own story of wear, corrosion, and survival, while the zinc coating protected the steel core. Initially, it often wore away, leaving the coins prone to rust and pitting, especially in humid environments. This made pristine examples harder to find and gave rise to the challenge of collecting steel pennies in high mint state grades. The differences between coins struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints provide additional variety for collectors, with each mint leaving its small identifying mark, or in the case of Philadelphia, none at all. Beyond the numismatic details, the steel penny reflects the sacrifices Americans made during World War II. It symbolizes how even the smallest denomination of money was tied to the larger war effort, and how everyday life adapted to extraordinary circumstances. Newspapers of the time reported on public reactions to the new pennies, some praising the patriotic move, others complaining about confusion at cash registers, banks, and stores. The mint itself issued statements reassuring the public that the change was temporary, and indeed, in 1944, copper returned, but not pure copper. This time, the coins were made from salvaged shell casings, a poetic reminder of how money and war became linked. In the most literal sense, over the decades, the 1943 steel wheat penny has grown in legend. Stories of children in the 1950s searching through piles of change in hopes of spotting the shiny steel cents, stories of families keeping jars of them as curiosities, stories of collectors chasing after the elusive copper version as the holy grail of American cents. Television shows, magazines, and coin dealers all helped spread the fame of this coin, turning it into an icon in American numismatics. In the world of grading and value, The steel wheat penny presents many dimensions. A common circulated example may only be worth a few cents, but higher-grade uncirculated specimens, especially those with brilliant original luster, can command significant premiums. Mint State 65 or better coins, particularly those certified by professional grading services, can bring collectors hundreds of dollars. And when it comes to error, coins off-center strikes, doubled, dies wrong, planche errors, and of course, the legendary copper strikes, the prices soar into the stratosphere. As we dive deeper into the history of this coin, we uncover the metallurgical decisions, the political discussions, and the wartime directives that gave birth to the 1943 steel cent. We explore the day-to-day experiences of Americans encountering the new coins. We trace their journey through circulation storage hoards and the modern collector market. We look at the technological challenges of producing steel planches, at scale the methods of plating them with zinc, and the problems encountered when the coating wore down. We also consider the long-term influence this coin had on future minting experiments and the ongoing fascination with alternative metals. The story of the 1943 steel wheat penny is not merely about a piece of currency. It is about America itself in a time of sacrifice, innovation, and unity. It is about the intersection of war and money, industry and necessity, patriotism and daily life. It is about how a small coin in your pocket can tell a story that stretches across continents and generations. And by the end of this journey, you will see that this humble penny is not just a coin. It is a chapter of history frozen in steel. People. Yet it carries with it a story of history, of struggle, of value, and of hidden rarity. Today, we are unlocking the mysteries of the rare American wheat penny from 1957. And by the end of this journey, you will never look at a penny the same way again. The year is 1957, and America is standing tall in the middle of the 20th century. It is a time of economic growth, a time when the country is building its power after the end of World War II, and the wheat penny of 1957 is quietly being produced at the United States Mint. These pennies may seem simple copper coins, but in truth they tell a story that stretches far beyond their small size. The wheat penny series, also called the Lincoln Wheat Cent, began in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first American coin to feature a real person on the obverse, and this decision was not only symbolic but revolutionary in the history of American coinage. Until then, coins featured allegorical figures such as Lady Liberty. But now the face of Lincoln would appear on every cent to remind Americans of unity, of freedom, and of sacrifice. The wheat penny design created by Victor David Brenner is iconic, with the portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent on the reverse, representing prosperity and the agricultural backbone of the nation. By 1957, the wheat cent had been in circulation for nearly 50 years, and it had become an everyday coin seen in shops, in banks, in schools, and in the hands of millions of Americans. Yet collectors already understood that the wheat penny was special each year, and each mint carried with it differences in production quantities, metal compositions, errors, and varieties that could turn an ordinary-looking cent into a valuable treasure. The 1957 wheat penny was struck at two locations, the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, marked with a D on the reverse below the date. Philadelphia produced more than 28 million pieces, while Denver struck an even greater number, exceeding 1 billion, making 1957 D. one of the most heavily produced wheat cents in the entire series. At first glance, the 1957 wheat penny may not seem rare. Its massive mintage numbers might suggest that these coins are everywhere, and to some degree that is true. However, the history of American coinage teaches us that rarity is not always about the number of coins minted. It is about how many survive in pristine condition, how many varieties and errors exist, and how collectors view the importance of that year in the broader story of the Lincoln series. This is where the 1957 wheat penny becomes fascinating. During the 1950s, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with small changes in planche quality and striking methods. Minor differences in the dies led to double die varieties, repunched mint marks, and striking errors that today make some 1957 wheat pennies worth far more than face value. For example, some double die obverses show a clear doubling in the date and in the inscriptions, "Liberty" or "In God." We trust other errors include off-center strikes, clipped planches, and die cracks. These varieties are sought after because they reveal the imperfections of human and machine working together in a time when quality control was not as advanced as it is today. Collectors also prize the 1957 wheat penny in high grades, particularly those certified as mint state red. These coins have retained their bright copper color unblemished by circulation and oxidation. Such pieces are scarce because most cents entered everyday use and quickly lost their luster. The survival of brilliant red examples requires careful storage from the very beginning, meaning someone had to set aside rolls or bags of 1957 cents before they ever reached circulation. The higher the grade, the rarer the coin, and at the top end, prices for flawless examples can reach hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The 1957 wheat penny also has significance as one of the final years of the wheat reverse design. Only 1 year later, in 1959, the Mint changed the reverse to feature the Lincoln Memorial as part of the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This transition marked the end of an era and cemented the wheat cents as a closed chapter in American coinage history. The 1957 issues represent the very last of the classic wheat cents, making them historically important to both casual collectors and serious numismatists. But to understand the 1957 wheat penny, we must look beyond the coin itself and into the context of American society. At the time, the mid-1950s were a period of transformation in culture, economy, and technology. Suburban growth, television, rock and roll, and the beginnings of the space race were all shaping the lives of, represent the very last of the classic wheat cents, making them historically important to both casual collectors and serious numismatists. But to understand the 1957 wheat penny, we must look beyond the coin itself and into the context of American society. At the time, the mid-1950s were a period of transformation in culture, economy, and technology, suburban growth, television, rock and roll, and the beginnings of the ordinary citizens, and through it all, pennies circulated as the smallest denomination of U.S. currency, used by children to buy candy, by families to save in jars, and by banks to count in rolls. Each cent was more than just a coin. It was a part of daily American life. The wheat penny was familiar, friendly, and trusted. When collectors today hold a 1957 wheat penny, they hold a tangible link to this era, a coin that passed through the hands of ordinary people and at the same time represents the artistry of Victor David Brenner and the vision of President Theodore Roosevelt, who championed the redesign of American coinage decades earlier. The 1957 cent is a piece of history in copper alloy, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, a composition that would soon change as America shifted to cheaper metals during the 1980s. The weight of 3.11 grams, the diameter of 19 millimeters, and the edge plane without reading are all technical details, but they serve as reminders of the precise standards maintained by the U.S. Mint. As we move deeper into the story, we must also examine how the 1957 wheat penny has become a teaching tool for new collectors. Beginners often encounter this date in circulation or in starter coin collections because it is one of the more common wheat cents. Yet through it they learn about mint marks, about grading, about varieties, and about the importance of condition. The 1957 cent, therefore, plays a vital role in sparking the passion of future numismatists. Even though billions were made, the destruction of cents over decades through loss, damage, and melting reduces the surviving population and ensures that gem examples are always in demand. The law of supply and demand works here just as it does in economics. The common becomes uncommon in higher grades, and the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary in the right circumstances. The story of the 1957 wheat penny is not finished. It continues every day in auctions, in coin shops, and in private collections. As pieces are bought, sold, and passed down from one generation to the next, each coin carries a history, each scratch or shine tells a story, and every collector adds their own chapter to the life of the coin. What makes the 1957 wheat penny special is not just its age or its design, but the way it connects people to history, to art, and to the idea that even the smallest object can carry immense value. Imagine holding in your hand a small copper coin minted in 1953, a wheat penny, whose face value was just 1 cent, but whose story stretches across generations of American history, economic change, artistry in coin design, and the subtle mysteries of numismatics. This is not just a penny. It is a window into the post-war era, a time when America was finding its footing after World War II, when prosperity was rising, but also when global tensions of the Cold War were beginning to shape the world. The wheat penny of 1953 tells us about how coins were made, the metal they were struck from the mints that produced them, the artistry of Victor David Brenner, who first designed the Lincoln cent in 1909, and the enduring symbolism of wheat, ears that represented American agriculture strength and growth. In those years, every coin in circulation carried a message far greater than its face value. The story of the 1953 wheat penny begins with its design. On the obverse, we find Abraham Lincoln, the beloved 16th president, immortalized on the cent since 1909. The Lincoln cent was the first U.S. coin to bear the portrait of an actual person, breaking away from the classical allegories of liberty that had dominated coinage for over a century. Brenner's design placed Lincoln facing right with the word liberty to his left and the date to his right above him, the motto, "In God We Trust," which had been appearing on coins since the Civil War era. What makes this coin iconic is the reverse, with its 2 simple wheat stalks, one on each side, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, along with the motto E pluribus unum. This wheat design would last until 1958 before being replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial reverse. But beyond the design lies the real depth of history. The 1953 wheat penny was minted at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint left its own small mark of history. Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark. Denver pennies bore a D, and San Francisco pennies and S. Collectors today seek out these varieties not only for their differences, but for their relative rarity. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 256 million coins. Denver struck more than 700 million, while San Francisco produced a more modest 181 million. In total, over 1 billion wheat pennies were struck in 1953, which speaks to the incredible demand for small change in post-war America. The metal content of these coins is another layer of their story, struck in 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. These coins carry within them the last full era of copper cents, before the dramatic changes of the 1970s and 1980s, when rising metal costs would lead to pennies being made primarily of zinc. The feel, weight, and tone of a 1953 cent speaks to an earlier age, when coins carried substance, when every clink in the pocket resonated with real metal. The historical backdrop of 1953 adds even greater meaning. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. The Korean War had just ended, the Cold War was heating up, and the American economy was booming. Suburban expansion, consumer spending, and industrial growth were reshaping the nation. Coins were everywhere: vending machines, buses, corner stores, pay telephones. All required pennies, nickels, and dimes. In those years, the penny still mattered. It could buy a stick of gum, a piece of candy, or contribute to a gallon of gasoline, costing just 29 cents. When we study a 1953 wheat penny, we are not only studying metal, but also the daily life of millions of Americans. For collectors, the value of the 1953 wheat penny varies dramatically depending on its condition, while most circulated examples are worth only a few cents to perhaps $1. Pristine examples, Uncirculated with full red luster can fetch far more, especially those certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. And then there are errors and varieties which make certain 1953 cents worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars doubled dies. Repunched mint marks off center strikes or coins struck on the wrong planchets. All are treasures waiting to be discovered in rolls jars or family coin boxes. The artistry of the wheat penny design also invites deep reflection. The choice of wheat. Ears as the central motif was not accidental in 1909. When Brenner created the design, the United States was still a largely agricultural nation. Wheat represented prosperity, nourishment, and growth. It was a symbol the average citizen could connect with. By 1953, though the country was shifting toward industrialization and urban living, yet the coin still carried that agricultural legacy, as if to remind Americans of their roots. As we dig deeper, we can look at the transition that followed just a few years later in 1959, when the wheat reverse gave way to the Lincoln Memorial. This marked the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and signaled a new direction in coin design. The 1953 wheat penny thus sits near the end of an era representing the last chapter of the beloved wheat design. Collectors cherish these coins not only for their copper glow but for their place as one of the final wheat issues. Even more fascinating is how these coins circulated. They traveled in the pockets of soldiers returning from Korea, factory workers, suburban families, children saving coins in piggy banks. They were exchanged in diners, jukeboxes, laundromats, and corner stores. Every scratch and mark on a circulated 1953 penny tells a story of everyday American life. To truly appreciate the 1953 wheat penny, we must also consider the broader numismatic tradition. The Lincoln cent has been in continuous production for over a century, making it the longest-running coin design in U.S. history. When you hold a 1953 cent, you are touching part of that legacy, part of a series that has endured longer than any other in American coinage history. This little coin connects us to art, politics, economics, and the ordinary lives of people decades ago. It teaches us how to see coins not just as money, but as historical documents, tiny works of art and enduring artifacts of culture for the collector, for the historian, for the curious soul. The 1953 wheat penny is a treasure not for its rarity alone, but for the story it carries from the heart of mid-century America. The 1955 wheat penny is more than copper. It is a key to unlocking forgotten stories. A symbol of error turned into gold and a living legend among coin hunters across generations. If you own one, you could be sitting on a fortune. If you find one, you've struck gold. Now let's journey into the untold story of the 1955 wheat penny, where truth meets myth and history breathes in metal. The story of the 1955 wheat penny begins not in 1955 but deep within the American soul, where coins were never just currency, but reflections of national pride, strength, and values. The wheat penny, or Lincoln cent, first minted in 1909, was a tribute to President Abraham Lincoln and a bold step forward for U.S. coinage. This coin was the first to feature a real historical figure on its face, a major departure from the allegorical designs of earlier American coins. The obverse featured a bust of Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials caused controversy when first included on the coin. The reverse showed two stalks of wheat, symbols of prosperity and growth, tying the coin to the land and the labor of the American people. For nearly 5 decades, the wheat penny would become an everyday part of life. It would be exchanged in shops, found in lunch boxes, and dropped into piggy banks by children. The Lincoln cent became more than a coin. It was a witness to history, from the World Wars to the Great Depression to the Cold War. And in 1955, this humble coin became the center of one of the most famous minting errors in American history. The Philadelphia Mint was the birthplace of the 1955 double-die penny, one of the most iconic errors ever produced in American numismatics. The process of minting coins involves the use of dies which stamp designs onto blank metal discs called planchets. Normally, these dies are prepared with great care, but in 1955, something went terribly wrong. During the die creation process, one working die received a second impression that was misaligned, creating a phenomenon known as doubling. When this die began striking coins, the result was stunning. The date and the letters, especially in the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," appeared as if doubled ghosted, creating a dramatic and unmistakable effect. Hundreds of thousands of these error coins were struck during a single overnight shift before the mistake was caught. But instead of destroying the flawed coins, the mint let them circulate, blending them into standard coin bags bound for banks and businesses. No official statement was made. No warning was given. The double die pennies simply entered circulation like any other cent. When the coins reached the public, the reaction was immediate, and electric people began noticing the strange, doubled lettering. Especially the date 1955, collectors scrambled to get their hands on them. Newspapers picked up the story, and soon the 1955 double die became a household name. This was not just an error, it was a sensation. Some called it a minting miracle. Others believed it was deliberate, a marketing stunt or conspiracy, but all agreed on one thing: the coin was unlike anything seen before, and it sparked a modern gold rush across America. Coin dealers began offering premiums to anyone who could find one. Children emptied their coin jars. Adults began checking every penny they received in change. This frenzy lasted years, and even today, the 1955 double die remains one of the most desired coins in circulation, despite being nearly 70 years old. As demand skyrocketed, so did the number of counterfeits. Many attempted to recreate the double die using mechanical doubling and other methods. But the true 1955 double die has distinct features that experts use to authenticate it. Genuine coins show strong doubling, especially on the obverse with clearly separated letters and date digits. The doubling appears as raised and bold, not flattened, as with machine doubling the position of the mint mark. The style of the mint lettering and even the specific die markers help distinguish the real from the fake. Collectors use high magnification and comparison tools to identify genuine examples. And today, third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC play a critical role in certifying and encapsulating these coins, ensuring their legitimacy and preserving them for future generations. The value of a 1955 double die wheat penny has climbed steadily over the decades depending on condition. This coin can sell from hundreds to thousands of dollars. Uncirculated mint state examples have fetched staggering prices at auction. One pristine MS-65 red example sold for over $100,000. The rarity of high-grade specimens combined with the coin's legendary status has made it a crown jewel of Lincoln cent collections. Even circulated versions with visible doubling can be worth hundreds, if not thousands. Collectors prize eye appeal, and originality coins that are not cleaned or altered often command higher prices. As of now, there is no sign of this coin's value dropping, as it remains both historically important and endlessly fascinating to collectors. Beyond its market value, the 1955 wheat penny holds a special place in the heart of American coin collecting. It is often the first major error coin that collectors learn about, and many begin their numismatic journeys by trying to hunt one down. The coin has appeared in books, magazines, news reports, and documentaries. It is a symbol of how chance and mistake can lead to greatness in the world of minting. It also serves as a case study in how the public reacts to rarity and mystery in everyday objects. Teachers use it to inspire students about history. Minting and economics museums display it as a representation of American innovation and imperfection. The coin has outlived its era and become a timeless story. While the double die is the star of 1955, there are other interesting varieties and standard issues. From that year, the regular 1955 wheat penny is still collectible, especially in high grades, and Mint States pennies from the Denver Mint, though not struck with a double die, are part of sets for year collectors. Proof sets from that year do not include the famous double die, but are still desirable for their sharp details and low mintages. Researchers have also documented minor doubling and other errors from 1955, including die cracks, cuts-off center strikes, and more. Each of these adds to the rich story of the year and fuels the passion of collectors. Finding a 1955 double die today is rare, but not impossible. Searching old coin jars, inherited collections, and bank rolls can still yield treasure. Online auctions, estate sales, and coin shows remain great hunting grounds. But caution is key due to the many counterfeits. Verifying authenticity through grading and expert review is essential. Starting a Lincoln cent collection with focus on wheat pennies is a smart move for new collectors, and the 1955 double die serves as a perfect centerpiece. Storing coins, properly learning how to grade them, and studying minting history will help build a rewarding and valuable collection. The 1955 wheat penny, especially the double die, remains one of the greatest stories in U.S. coin history. It is a symbol of how an accident can create a masterpiece, how a single night at the mint can echo across generations. It captures the imagination, not just because of its look or its value, but because it reminds us that in the smallest places, even in a copper penny, there can be greatness, mystery, and history waiting to be discovered. The coin connects everyday people to the minting process, to the fabric of America, and to the shared excitement of finding something rare in the most unexpected of places. Today we unlock the secrets of the rare American coins, focusing on the legendary wheat penny of 1939, a small piece of copper that carries the weight of history, rarity, and collector passion. The wheat penny of 1939 stands as one of the most remarkable pieces of American coinage history, a coin that was struck during a turbulent time when the United States was slowly recovering from the Great Depression, and the world was on the brink of entering the most devastating conflict in human history, the Second World War. To understand the wheat penny of 1939, we must go back in time to the origins of the Lincoln cent, which was first introduced in 1909 as a way to honor the centennial of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first widely circulated American coin to feature a real historical figure, and it replaced the Indian head cent that had been in circulation since 1859. The design of the Lincoln cent was created by Victor David Brenner, an immigrant from Lithuania who became one of the most celebrated engravers of his time. He crafted a portrait of Abraham Lincoln based on a photograph taken by Matthew Brady, and the reverse side of the coin carried two wheat stalks symbolizing prosperity and agricultural strength, which gave the coin its nickname, the wheat penny, from 1909 until 1958. The wheat reverse was used, making this series one of the most beloved by collectors across the world. The 1939 wheat penny falls within this range, and although on the surface it may appear to be just another copper cent, its story is rich with history, minting details, rarity varieties, and the economic backdrop of its time. The year 1939 was significant for both the United States and the world in America. The economy was still healing from the long shadow of the Great Depression. The New Deal programs launched earlier in the decade had brought some recovery, but unemployment remained high, and industries were still struggling to return to pre-1929 levels internationally. September of 1939 marked the beginning of World War II when Germany invaded Poland, and although the United States did not enter the war until 1941, the global tension was already shaping policies. Trade and public sentiment coins struck in this year therefore carry with them not only the image of Lincoln, but also the weight of a nation in transition. Industries were still struggling to return to pre-1929 levels internationally. September of 1939 marked the beginning of World War II when Germany invaded Poland, and although the United States did not enter the war until 1941, the global tension was already shaping policies. Trade and public sentiment coins struck in this year therefore carry with them not only the image of Lincoln, but also the weight of a nation in transition. The 1939 wheat penny was struck at three United States mints: the Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, the Denver Mint with the D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint with the S mint mark. Each of these carries its own level of rarity and collector interest. The Philadelphia Mint produced the highest mintage of 316 million pieces, which makes the 1939 no-mint mark penny relatively common. The Denver Mint produced around 15 million, coins making it scarcer, while the San Francisco Mint struck just under 52 million pieces, placing it in between the two in terms of availability. However, collectors value these coins not just for their mintage numbers, but also for the condition in which they survive. Uncirculated examples of the 1939 wheat penny, particularly those with sharp strikes and original red luster, are considered treasures by numismatists. Grading agencies like PCGS and NGC assign numerical grades to coins with mint state 65 and higher being the most sought after, while circulated coins are easy to find. Pristine, uncirculated survivors are much more difficult. This is because pennies were heavily used in everyday transactions, and most were quickly worn down through circulation, making high-grade survivors rare. There are also notable varieties and errors associated with the 1939 wheat penny. One of the most recognized is the doubled die obverse, where details like the date or lettering appear doubled under magnification. Though not as famous as the 1955 doubled die, the 1939 varieties still attract strong collector interest. Repunched mint marks, where the D or S mint mark appears to have been stamped more than once, are also popular among collectors and can dramatically increase the value of the coin in auctions and private sales. Error coins such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or die cracks from this year are also cherished for their uniqueness. Each error coin represents a glimpse into the minting process and the imperfections that escape the quality control of the time. The composition of the 1939 wheat penny was 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing 3.11 grams and measuring 19 millimeters in diameter. This standard composition had been used for decades and would remain until 1943, when wartime shortages forced the mint to strike pennies in zinc-coated steel. Instead, copper was needed for the production of ammunition and military equipment during the war years, which makes the pre-1943 copper cents, including the 1939 penny, important markers of the pre-war era. Holding in your hand a 1939 penny is holding a Your hand a 1939 penny is holding a fragment of America just before it stepped fully into World War II. Collectors often categorize the 1939 wheat penny into several groups based on strike quality and preservation coins, with original red surfaces are considered the highest tier, followed by red-brown, and then brown coins which show full toning from circulation. Red examples in high mint state grades can fetch hundreds of dollars, while even circulated versions hold steady value because of their age, historical importance, and popularity among collectors. When we look at the broader history of the wheat penny, we see that the 1939 issue sits in the middle of the series. It was not the first, not the last, and not struck in a key year like 1909 or 1955, but it still tells its own story. The story of a nation standing between depression and war, a people who still believed in progress and prosperity, symbolized by the wheat stalks, and a mint that continued to deliver billions of coins to fuel commerce during uncertain times. Beyond the facts and figures, the 1939 wheat penny has a cultural significance. Many collectors can remember finding these coins in circulation decades later, well into the 1950s and 1960s, when wheat pennies were still commonly encountered in pocket change. Today, finding one in circulation is rare but possible, and the thrill of spotting those two wheat ears on the reverse is what has sparked a lifelong collecting passion for many numismatists. Children in the 20th century often started coin collecting with wheat pennies found in change, and the 1939 issue remains a favorite for building sets, whether in circulated grades or as part of high-quality registry collections. The legacy of the wheat penny, and the 1939 issue in particular, is a legacy of resilience, of memory, and of the enduring American spirit. As small as it is, the coin embodies a moment in history when the United States was still climbing out of hardship while bracing for challenges that lay ahead for collectors, investors, and historians. The 1939 wheat penny is more than a coin. It is a doorway to the past, a conversation with history struck in copper and passed from hand to hand across generations.